The Land Cruiser 200 series here in all its glory definitely is a number of people's dream car, and it certainly was mine. Still is. It's still an amazing piece of machinery and allows me to do everything that I want to do in my life and getting further away from civilization and enjoying the great outdoor lifestyle that we all know and love. But is it perfect? Is it the best car in the entire world? Or is it an absolute lemon? And I wanted to go through a bit of my experience with my 200 series. So this is 5 things I love and 5 things I absolutely hate about my Land Cruiser 200 series. Enjoy. So I have made a bit of a list of the things that I really love and I really hate. I don't like the word hate, to be honest. I really dislike, but the word dislike doesn't really give as much gravitas as I think YouTube deserves. So things I really hate about my Land Cruiser 200 series. I'm going to try and go through them as organically as possible because there's some which segue really nicely from a like to a hate or vice versa. So we're going to work through it. And the first thing, obviously, is just the visual look of the thing. I think, my personal opinion, this is probably the best looking four-wheel drive that you can buy today. I think that proportionally it's great. It's got a really good presence. It looks really modern. It looks classy, and it looks like it's not going to get dated. I used to think the same thing about my Prado. I thought it was amazing until this thing came out, and it just had that really powerful muscular stance that the 200 does. And I think it's amazing. So look, visually, it's one of my things that I absolutely love about this car is every time I look at it, I just go, wow. And it just looks at home out on the tracks. It looks at home on the beach, covered in mud. It absolutely is just the dream car. And the best thing about it is that, you know, you can just look at it and appreciate it. And I really, really love that. It's like that meme, you know, if you don't turn around and look at your car and take a photo of it when you're at the shopping centre, then you bought the wrong car. Yeah, I take way too many pictures of this car. I've got more photos of my car than my wife or my baby, or my dogs. So yeah, at least, I mean, it sits still a little bit easier than the other one. So look, number one thing I really love about this car is just the way it looks. I think it's incredible. Leading on from that, the second thing I really love about this car is the capacity. So this Land Cruiser 200 series obviously is rated to tow you 3.5 tonne. A lot of modern cars nowadays are also rated to that much, but being a big car with a big strong engine and just physically a strong car, and the 200 just does it with ease, with a lot less strain than some of your smaller cars may go through trying to accomplish the same thing. And I think that's amazing, which is really great for like future-proofing our plans going forward. So I really like that. And the other thing which not a lot of people talk about is the roof load capacity of your four-wheel drive. This will obviously be specific to how you use your four-wheel drive and what you use it for and what accessories you have. There's a lot of people who just throw a simple roof rack on the roof, may throw a swag, may throw an awning up there, and that's pretty much it. In which case, roof loading is not going to be a huge factor for you, especially if you've got a smaller car or a dual cab or something like that, because that, you know, 50 to 80 kilos is more than enough for whatever you're wanting to use it for. For me though, as you can see, I've got a full-size clamshell rooftop tent. I've got an alu-cab rooftop tent. I've got a 270-degree awning on the side. I've got a solar panel up here. I've got max tracks. I keep all my bedding and extra stuff up here. So I have a bit of weight on the roof. This is the exact same setup I had on my 120 series Prado. The 120 series Prado had a roof load limit of 100 kilos. This full setup was very close to, if not maybe going over that a little bit. So legally, again, my car is overweight. My insurance was an issue. It's technically not a roadworthy vehicle, which throws a lot of question marks in terms of when you're traveling, what sort of legalities you're in. With the 200 series, it has a roof load rating of 200 kilos. I will find the literature to support that. It'll be up in one of the corners somewhere. If not, it'll be in the comments. I'll make sure I find that. But yeah, you've got 200 kilos you can throw on the roof of this thing, which gives you a huge amount of capability. Now, obviously, I'm not going to put 200 kilos up here because that's a lot of weight. This full setup here is about 95 kilos, I think, which means that I've still got a lot of headroom. But it also means that the mounting points for everything in the roof is nice and strong. I am well within that limit, which means that There's extra redundancy there for whatever reason I need it. It just provides that little bit of peace of mind knowing that whatever I put on the roof and whatever I want to use it for, the 200 is more than up for the task. So that moves on to probably the first thing that I really dislike about really hate about the 200 series is its lack of payload. So the payload of the car is obviously how much the car weighs standard, so curb weight, minus the factory gross vehicle mass, or GVM, how heavy the vehicle is allowed to be. So from factory, these vehicles come out from the factory, per Toyota specs, at 2740 kgs. So call it 2750 for nice round sake. The factory GVM for this car is 3350. What that means is I have 600 kilos of payload on this car before I'm over that GVM. That sounds like quite a lot, but it is easily eaten away once you start adding people, fuel, and accessories. Now, there will be some discrepancy depending on how people define certain things like curb weight. Does that include fuel? Does that include your driver? Does it include a passenger? This thing is licensed to carry 7 people. 7 people, not 7 kids, 7 people. So if you wanted to, you could load 7 fully sized adults into this car and drive around with them. However, 7 adults, call it between 80 to 100 kilos, especially in Australia, you're going to be well over that payload of 600 kilos. So that 600 kilos may sound like a lot, but there's a lot of things which will easily eat into that. Number one, you've got accessories on the vehicle. Bull bar, you're looking, ARB Summit bar, probably adding about 80 to 85 kilos to the vehicle. A winch, there's 20 kilos, extra second battery, auxiliary fuel tanks, extra passengers, fridge, side rails and steps, roof rack, rooftop tent, rear bar. So you then also need to add on the ball weight or whatever it is you're towing. So if you've got a big van, or like a, let's say 3.5 ton van, or big 22-foot van or whatever it may be, your ball weight may be 300 to 350 kilos. There's more than half of your payload already gone by just what you're towing. And if you're towing, you're probably going to have a bull bar on the front because you're going to want to do remote trips and you want a bit of protection for the car. There's another nearly 100 kilos gone. Oh, you're going to have extra kids in there? Cool, there's a bit of extra payload. It easily is eaten up, and I think that's really one of the places where Toyota dropped the ball in terms of rating this vehicle. I think it could be rated to much higher for the GVM, but from factory Toyota haven't done it, and that's a big miss in my books. So Toyota may have dropped the ball in terms of the GVM, but one place they haven't skimped on is the engine. So this car obviously comes with the 1VD V8 engine. It is a twin turbo V8 diesel. It has a lot of technology built into the engine and drivetrain to make it perform as well as it can in a huge number of different situations and environments. The factory figures are 195 kilowatts and 650 Newton meters of torque, which is pretty massive. Today's day and age, there are many cars out there which will make more power or torque, whatever it is, from factory. But this just does it with such ease. One of the ways that Toyota get their engines to last so long is they derate them. These engines are capable of producing lots of power. They've got lots of great aids helping them. You've got electronic injection, you've got variable vane turbochargers, etc., etc. But they actually choose to derate the engine to get it to make power in lots of different environments where air quality is a lot different, where fuel quality varies quite a lot as well, and where the engine is going to have to perform in lots of different environments as well. So high altitudes, low altitudes, high humidity, high traffic areas, that sort of thing. They've made it so that the engine is going to perform, and it's going to perform for a very long time. What that does mean is if you want more power out of this thing, and there's a lot of power there, but if you want it, it is very, very easy to increase the power output of these engines. Even with a basic tune, you're looking at 20 to 30% extra power coming out of this thing with just going in there and changing a few parameters. Once you start looking at changing other items like going bigger turbos, going bigger injectors, bigger intercoolers, air intake systems, exhaust systems, etc., etc., you can make massive power. There's actually people out there running 500-600 horsepower out of these engines with a number of different mods. So they're a great engine. I'm really, really happy with it. And it always puts a smile on my face when I get to hear it. And whenever I want to put my foot down and overtake anyone on the highway, it's just phenomenal. And if you haven't driven one of these, I highly recommend you give it a go because it's fantastic. While we're under here, I can easily talk about two things that I also really very much hate about this car is the factory airbox. Now, the factory airbox is known to leak dust, whether that's coming through the sides of the airbox. It is a plastic airbox. When it gets hot, it gets malleable, or whether it comes through the factory filter. The discussion's out whether or not it comes through one or the other, but it is well known that these engines have a problem with sucking in dust. So that'll get obviously into your air intake, goes through your intercooler, ends up in your turbos, and will damage the fins and obviously get into your pistons. It's a big follow-on effect, and you don't want it. Higher kilometre engines obviously will show more evidence of this, or cars which are used more extensively in dusty conditions. You can find city dwelling 200 series which have never had an issue with that, but look, you go to 200 series issues and you look anywhere, and one of them is definitely going to be the airbox. Now for me, I do some dusty roads. I feel like I don't do enough dust to really warrant this being the top of my priority list to fix up, but it is there to fix. I want to get it sorted. We've got a number of big trips, outback trips that we want to do coming up, and I want to know that the air going into the engine is as clean as it can be. So I'm looking into different options of how to best replace this airbox and to move forward with that. But that is something we will deal with at another time. The other downside to having this lovely V8 engine is obviously it uses a lot of fuel. There are a number of technologies that go into this engine to make it as economic as possible. They are all quite redundant when this engine meets a bullhead who goes, "Oh, this engine sound good. Me put foot down. Me make good sounding noise," which obviously chews through the fuel. So look, my fuel economy is a bit all over the place. This engine and everything else is pretty much stock standard. You can see I've upgraded the intercooler. But apart from that, everything else is pretty much standard. It hasn't had a tune. At the moment, my fuel economy, the best I've gotten it is about 15, and that was sitting on the highway, nice easy conditions. And the worst I've seen it, just normal day-to-day driving, is about 22 litres, and that was obviously me being a little bit energetic with my free-spirited driving. So that's the sort of range you're sitting on. Look, at the moment, I think it's sitting on about 17 to 18 litres per 100 as an average. This can be improved obviously through a tune and just not being an absolute knucklehead in terms of driving it. But look, it's got a big long range tank on this car, and it makes me smile. That's all you really need sometimes to justify what you do. So yeah, look, I really don't like how much fuel it uses, but there are definitely lots of ways that we can improve that moving forward. One of the massive advantages that this car has going for it is that it is a Toyota. It is sold in massive numbers. It comes under the LANDCRUISER lineup, and it is hugely popular. It also shares a number of engine components and other driveline components with other Toyotas as well. 79 series, obviously for your engine. Transmission is very similar to the Tundra, but the best thing about that is that because they're so popular, lots of aftermarket accessory companies, such as ARB, TJM, Red Arc, a lot of different places will make lots of different accessories for these cars. So you go to any of those different accessory places, open their book, and more than likely you'll find a 200 series on display with a bunch of stuff on it and a bunch of parts available. So that includes obviously adding accessories. So you can see here I've got some nice rims, tires. I've got these bush barriers as well, which are available specifically for the 200 series. You've got a Kamo rear bar, there's aftermarket suspension, long range tank, heaps of stuff which is available for this car. You look at other four-wheel drives on the market at the moment, and there may not be as much accessories available for them, which isn't a bad thing, but it just means that if you're looking for different options, you may be stuck into using one company who makes the accessories for your car, rather than having lots of different parts available, which obviously helps to build competition and help with cost. And the flip side of that is also your spare parts. So for whatever reason, if I need to buy a spare part for this car, it breaks down, I need an oil seal, I need an alternator, I need a starter motor, I need whatever it may be, you go into any place, there will always be parts available for a LANDCRUISER, and there will most likely be parts available for a 200 series. Also because they share a lot of the engine architecture as the 79 series cruisers. Mine sites, fleet vehicles, farming, all that sort of stuff, they all use 79 series cruisers. And if you need an oil filter or something like that, more than likely they'll have one on the shelf ready to go. So that's an absolutely massive plus for the 200 series in my book. Another thing I absolutely love about the 200 series is when you get in it, it just all feels really quality and really solid. That's obviously quite an arbitrary thing, and it's a bit hard to quantify or anything like that, but personally, when I get in this car and you feel like the solid doors moving, you look at all the interiors and you know, it doesn't feel cheap and nasty. A big thing is obviously the way the doors close. So when you close the doors and you hear a nice solid thunk, I don't know, that's something that I think I really value when I'm looking at a car, is if you can close the door and it sounds quality and it feels quality, that's obviously a big thing. A number of people will say that the interior of these is quite dated. I would beg to differ. I find it quite modern. I find it quite intuitive where to find things. Yeah, like in the Saharas, you get wood grain and other bits and pieces. I've got bits of wood grain, I suppose, which are quite outdated. Looking at you, Y62 owners. But I really like it because everything's just got a really, really nice quality feel to it. It's quiet and comfortable in here. I really like the seats. The interior is quite well insulated for noise and for heat as well. And overall, it's just one of those places where whenever I hop in the car, I just go, it feels like home. It feels like a nice place to be, where you can sort of relax and enjoy your surroundings. So again, probably a little bit arbitrary for some people, but it's something that I really love about my 200 series. Moving from my 120 series Prado to the Land Cruiser 200, you could really notice this. The Prado is obviously a lighter duty. It's a little bit more of a, I suppose you'd call it a cost-effective Land Cruiser, which is what it's made for in the market. But as such, everything that's in here is, that it was in the Prado was made to a cost, and it sometimes came across a little bit that way. So when you're looking at some of the interior plastics and touching some of the controls and whatever it may be, everything worked and it was okay, but nothing felt special or quality. When you go to hop in a 200 series, it's a massive jump, and you just feel like all the plastic, everything clips together with those better tolerances. The control knobs and the buttons all just have that really satisfying ergonomic feel to them. And look, it's something fantastic I really love about the 200 series, and yeah, I really, really like it. Now, this does unfortunately lead on to another thing that I really don't like about my 200 series, and this almost borders onto a hate. Obviously, you can't buy these cars brand new anymore. Some people have owned them since new, but I can't buy one brand new anymore. So you were going to buy one second hand. My first Land Cruiser that I bought back in 2021 to replace my Prado, it had done 160,000 Ks. It was mainly used as a reps car in rural areas and regional areas. It was sort of mildly modified. You know, there's a little bit of dirt and there's a few tiny scuffs on the inside, but overall it was in really, really good condition. It also really showed when you started pulling like interior plastics off. There's no, it was all clean behind there. You're not finding dirt, you're not finding wrappers, you're not finding old lollies, that sort of stuff stuck behind places. And it just felt really nice because even though it was a secondhand car, it felt very new. And a lot of your parts you'd pull off the car, you'd go, this is the first time they've been apart, which was actually really fantastic. As you'd know, my first Land Cruiser went through a bit of an accident. It sadly is passed on. You can see more details up in one of those corners. And this is my second Land Cruiser. Now, this one here had less kilometers on it. It's got more accessories on it, but again, secondhand. But unfortunately, this has been used. It has been used harder and in more off-road situations. It's been used for towing heavy things, and it hasn't been taken care of nearly as well as my first cruiser. Paul, if you're watching, who was the previous owner, sorry mate, but yeah, like, well, when you start pulling stuff apart to modify it and you find wrappers and lollies and you know, there's red dust and you find mud marks behind some of the plastics, you get a little bit worried because you think, geez, what was the history of this car? And if, you know, they're not, you know, going to be pulling out old chips and stuff from underneath the seats, you know, what does that say about how they take care of their gear? I suppose it also brings up the question of longevity when you start seeing these sorts of things, you know, like when you're looking at things where they've got a fair bit of rust on them, or there's lots of stone marks that have taken paint off, or there's scratches and dents and other bits and pieces you find. It throws a little bit of doubt into it. Look, everything's reversible. Everything needs a good clean, it needs a good wash, it needs a bit of a touch up here and there, and it's all good to know. Most of it's cosmetic, but it's more the fact of when you take a car which is newer and got less kilometers on it, and it has more wear and tear. I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 times more wear and tear than my previous cruiser. It is a bit of a cause for concern, and it means that therefore I'm going to have to do more work to this car moving forward. So look, that's one thing that is always a nag on my mind with this car, is it is secondhand. You're always going to get your little drawbacks for a secondhand car, but when you find things which haven't been done great, and it's probably, you know, like, oh, all this stuff's been done, it's been used quite hard, it's probably going to need to be replaced soon. Look, it's a bit of a downer, but you know, you move forward and maintain the vehicle and go forward from there. So yeah, let's find something else I love about this car. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the actual capacity and the cargo space in this car. It is a big car. It's a full-size, four-wheel drive. It's pretty massive. But what that means is that inside there's lots of space. I know, especially with the Prado, and I'm not comparing a lot of things with the Prado here, but the rear seats, yeah, you could fit probably a small to medium sized adult in there, but once you got any larger than that, it was really struggling. With the 200 series, absolutely not a problem. Heaps of legroom, heaps of headroom. If you want to fit 3 adults across the back, you definitely can. If you want to fit 3 baby capsules or kid seats in there, you definitely can. Also, this back compartment is fantastic, so much space. You can obviously see I've got a fairly extensive drawer set up in here. I've got heaps of storage. I've got water storage. I've got a massive 12-volt system. I've got my battery in the back here. And I've still got room to throw 2 dogs and luggage and stuff in the back as well. So look, it's a massive win. And also, oh, while I'm here, sorry, 5.5, the split tailgate. I was really on the fence about this when I moved from the Prado to the 200. Having the rear door, and just having like, cool, there's a big piece of real estate that I can play with. That was like, oh, cool, you know, I know how to do it. I'm familiar with it. Whereas the tailgate, I was like, oh, I don't know. But to be honest, it's fantastic. Like having a split tailgate, a place that you can sit, a quick workbench if you need to use it. You've got a bit of shelter from the sun or the rain or whatever it may be with the top half of it. And it also allows you then to put a nice little light there, which illuminates your cargo space. So yeah, look, that's a massive thing I really love about this car. I've been able to incorporate this big setup, all these different accessories, and it isn't obnoxious and overloaded or anything like that. It just works, and it's fantastic. I really, really love it. So while we're here, the last thing that I really don't like about this car is the expenses of running it and using it. Fuel is obviously a big thing on there. Fuel consumption I've already touched on. There's also things like your servicing costs. Anything goes wrong needs replacing. Parts are sometimes plentiful, but will be expensive, especially when things are specific for this car. So when you look at the electronic sides of things under the engine bay, of, you know, you need to replace your injector drivers or an ECU for doing XYZ, interior parts or whatever it may be, it's costly. It's very, very costly. Luckily, I haven't had to replace anything too costly as of yet. But when my other car obviously got written off, we priced up how to replace everything to get it back up to spec so that it would pass insurance. And the costs just added up so quickly when you're looking at electric adjusted seats. You know, I think they're about 3 or 4 grand each, brand new from Toyota. Wiring looms, you're looking at 10, 15 grand for a wiring loom. You're looking at injectors, which are $800 or $900 each. You're looking at intercoolers, 2 grand. You know, all this stuff, it really adds up in terms of if something breaks and if something goes catastrophically wrong, you need big dollars to fix it and keep it on the road. Even maintaining is not too bad. Like obviously filters aren't too bad, seals are fine, but your oil, you obviously need a DPF specific oil for these cars. So look, you did, and once you start looking at those sort of specific items, they tend to bump the prices up for whatever reason, but it is what it is. So costs definitely go up. The other thing is obviously rego and insurance. This car is worth a lot of money. Whether you think it's worth a lot of money or not, that's completely up to you. But the buy-in price for a LANDCRUISER 200 series is up there. I think brand new, a VX of this model is about $105,000 to buy brand new. You add all the accessories of it, obviously that bumps the price up as well. It is also very hard to replace these cars if for whatever reason it gets written off. So obviously when you have your insurance, if the car gets written off, insurance has to pay for a brand new one of the same spec or age or as close to. And when you start looking at secondhand prices of especially a LANDCRUISER, they're massive. They're absolutely massive. Mine was previously underinsured, in which case I was out of pocket trying to buy this car and build everything back to where I wanted to be. That also carries over to, it's a very expensive car. Your insurance premiums jump right up as well. It is a V8 large wagon, which isn't great for regos. I know some states and territories, they'll actually alter your registration depending on how many cylinders you have or your power output or whatever it may be. So that bumps everything back up. A lot of things about this car cost money, and it is expensive to run and maintain, to insure, to register. I think my personal opinion is it is worth it. It is 110% worth it to spend however much money you have to get this car to run and to be able to go out and do what you want to do with it, because it's fantastic. I really, really love it. Overall, I wouldn't sell this car for anything on the market today. It is fantastic. And yeah, I reckon you guys do too. Because look, you keep watching my videos and I keep making them and you keep telling me how awesome they are. So really thank you, and I really appreciate all the feedback that you guys give me. What do you reckon about my list? Do you reckon I was right, or do you reckon that I was wrong? Did I miss out on some parts? Have I overlooked something? Is there anything that you'd add to the list as a love or a hate for this car? let me know in the comments below, and let's have a chat in the comments. I'll get back to you, and we'll see if we can hash out who's got the best car, and I know I do. So cheers guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next time on Off-Road Crusader. Cheers.